Biden and Trump visiting Michigan in battle for labor vote in the key swing state. Now, why is this important? Okay. There's an article accompanying this that has made me have an aneurysm in record time. It's from Politico. Before we get into, Joseph Robinette Biden, as we talked about extensively yesterday, attending a picket line in a historic move for labor in the United States of America. Okay. And then falsely conflating it to, or before we get into Donald Trump visiting a scab shop in the midst of real union action happening. There's a real real shitty situation happening in real time in front of our eyes. If you are at least like relatively knowledgeable on labor union related issues, you will probably also have an aneurysm. A record-breaking aneurysm moment for me from Adam Wren, writing the worst article I've ever seen on Politico, which we will dive into. Okay, I couldn't even finish it. Like, maybe the article turns into like a much better one later in the article, but like the first. Wait, how do I find this fucking article? Jesus Christ, the Politico article. Hold on. Adam Wren, GOP, labor, Politico. Okay. GOP's big bet on labor 20 hours ago from Adam Wren. Okay. Presented by Meta to make it even funnier. This article gave me in record time a fucking aneurysm. Okay. Wait, I think they might have changed it. When Donald Trump heads to suburban Detroit Wednesday to address auto workers. Okay. Oh, they did. They changed it. Okay. So in this morning, when the article, or at least yesterday, when the article was first released, and when I first read it, this was the first line in the article. When Donald Trump heads to suburban Detroit Wednesday to address striking auto workers. Like, I read that first line and I was like, that's it. I'm done. Put me on a fucking rocket ship to Mars. I don't give a shit. Like, I'm ending it all. Okay. How can you do this? How can you start an article where the main premise of the fucking article is supposed to be, is already like a non-truthful statement, okay, that like GOP is actually retriangulating, you know what I mean? But then the first line is just an objective falsehood. And it's not just an objective falsehood. It's not just any kind of objective falsehood. It's like, here's how I will utilize this. I will explain this to you using terminology that liberals understand, okay? Because liberals don't really understand labor unions all that much. They don't understand like labor workers' rights all that much. So I'll use it like this. Let's say Black Lives Matter is protesting yet another instance of police brutality. Joe Biden actually goes to the BLM protests, okay, and like talks alongside the actual activists on the ground. And then Trump goes instead, as he's campaigning, and like meets with the police union. And then the media covers it like Trump is showing support by talking to Black Lives Matter activists. That is what this would look like. Now, of course, liberal media, mainstream media in general, even though Politico is like a right-wing dish rag for the most part, is still very liberal, because everyone's liberal after all. They would never cover it in that same way. They would never cover it like that, because that is a point of contention where battle lines are drawn. Okay? This, on the other hand, labor being having no power whatsoever in the United States of America, unfortunately, is almost like turning into a culture war issue. Like, where they are desperately trying to turn this into like a wedge issue somehow, where you can just say like, well, right-wing populists care about labor too. Like, they don't. They do not. Okay? So, one thing that I've seen also from NPR even this morning was people talking about how like the GOP actually does really well now. Trump does really well with, union rank and filers, and it's the leadership that he's at odds with. Okay? It's the leadership that he's at odds with, and it's the union rank and filers that love him. Okay? And that makes me want to fucking die. Like, no. How do you think like, you just demonstrably do not understand or are deliberately misrepresenting how unions work, because the rank and file voted for Sean Fain, the leadership. So that's number one. And number two, the rank and file also voted democratically to push forward a strike, which means that, like, no, the rank and file is on board with this labor action. But they're so far, their heads are caught so far up their assholes that I guess there's no need to, like, cover this in a serious way. 98% strike authorization, and these dumb bitches are like, oh, I don't know, like, maybe it's the rank and file that, like, loves Trump, but the leadership is the one who's, like, throwing the strikes. Like, they don't understand how this works at all. It's an actual democratic process. Now, they might be oblivious to how that works. One, because in their world, having any kind of democratic vote on action like this does not exist, or that they're willingly misrepresenting it because they know that other people don't know that. Now, this does not mean that there aren't rank and filers that love Trump or have voted for Trump. Of course there are. Okay? But utilizing that as though that is significant, as though that this says anything about, like, Trump's legitimate interest in, like, uplifting the American working class, is journalistic malpractice, is just straight up lying, actually. Fuck journalistic malpractice. It's just lying. You are lying to your audience, you Weasley little fucking liars. Anyway, so let's hear from CBS Morning while I go pee real quick as we introduce the story. Sometimes I do walk away and I still listen to what is going on, and I still give you commentary for those who are, very frustrated every single time I go up and pee. Okay? But let's get started.
CBS News poll shows this. Donald Trump has a commanding lead among Republicans in the first two states that will decide the party's 2024 nominee. So in spite of all the legal issues, Trump leads the GOP field in Iowa by 30 points. Republicans in New Hampshire support him by an even larger margin, as you see on your screen. Today, the former president will be in the swing state of Michigan, just one day after President Biden visited the striking auto workers there. Robert Costa is in Wayne, Michigan, with more on this part of the story. Bob, good morning to you.
Good morning. The battle for the support of the working voter, it continues today here in Michigan when former President Trump arrives later today to address a non-union facility. These dueling appearances could be a preview of what's to come with a possible rematch in the general election next year.
The middle class built the country. Unions built the middle class.
President Biden encouraged striking auto workers to stick with it and became the first president to join a picket line.
So let's keep going. You deserve what you...
Yeah. This is, like, historic. This is historic. Not like historic. This is actually historic, okay? The American government has been designed to churn out antagonistic results to labor, okay? So when you have the American president, the head of state, actually openly support and side with the working class like this, it's fucking historic. It's a big deal. Okay? This is a major deal. This is a first. Yes, this is a first. Now, senators have gone to the picket line. Congresspersons have gone to the picket line. Presidents that want to become president have attended picket lines. But this sort of thing is what I would expect from Bernie Sanders. This is one of the major points that I made about Bernie Sanders being good for the working class in general, utilizing the bully pulpit to uplift workers' voices, uplift their demands, and openly side with them in and hope that obviously labor organizing continues to grow in this country, because it's the most effective way to generate worker power in this country. Okay, to have autonomy in your workplace. So it's great. This is huge. And I want to stress this. I want to stress this for those of you who say, like, oh, Biden sucks, Biden sucks, Biden sucks. Sure. There's plenty of things that Biden has done that I do not like. There's plenty of things that I don't understand. especially as it pertains to like student loan debt relief, for example. You know, campaign promises that he made that he did not act out on, that he did not follow through on. But this is huge. Okay? This is huge.
You've earned a hell of a lot more than you're getting paid now.
The UAW is looking for a 36% raise over the next 4 years, a 4-day work week, and union protections for workers at 10 electric vehicle battery factories.
We're going to stick with it to get what we deserve, what we've been deprived. So yes, I'm sticking with it.
And with the strike growing to 41 plants and facilities across 21 states, the back-to-back visits by Biden and Trump today are putting workers' rights at the forefront of the 2024 campaign.
Is the labor vote up for grabs?
I would say you have to earn it.
United Auto Workers President Shawn Fain has been critical of Trump and stood with President Biden on Tuesday.
Thank you, Mr. President, for coming.
But his union is yet to endorse anyone in the race for president.
I'll tell you what, the auto workers are being sold down the river by their leadership. And
Yeah. Trying to drive a wedge between the leadership and the union is so funny. Are there moments where, no. Oh, minor F. Okay, Jesus Christ, I got so scared. Little baby F there for a second. Are there moments where the labor union and the okay, everyone is going crazy, but like it was a little baby blip F, okay? Mini F. Are there moments, okay, I'm going to get back to the commentary now. Are there moments where the labor union leadership and the rank and file are at odds? Certainly, okay? This happened famously in Nevada. It happened famously in Nevada during the primaries in Nevada, where the culinary union, which is a very powerful union in Nevada, okay, was openly against Medicare for all, whereas the rank and file was openly in support of Medicare for all. They did not support Bernie Sanders, whereas the rank and file aggressively supported Bernie Sanders and voted in the direction of Bernie Sanders. At the time, the media did a very piss poor job of covering the stories. I was right there. I was covering it. And the reality is that they had reasons for why they were anti-Medicare for all. They thought that it was giving them an upper hand and more leverage. They were just kind of corrupt. Some union leadership will be corrupt. It is what it is. You know, they'll operate like a cutout of the Democratic Party. Okay? So that part can happen. This, on the other hand, is not one of those instances where the rank and file is at odds with the union leadership. Okay? There's no being at odds with the union leadership. They had a 98% vote to strike. No one in the United States of America in contemporary US history has reached that level of popularity in any vote, okay? There's no ballot measures that hit that level of popular support. And we know ballot measures are significantly more popular than both parties' representatives. So ridiculous for Trump to say this, and additionally ridiculous for the media to even give it any kind of light, give it any kind of breath whatsoever instead of immediately shooting it down.
their leadership should endorse Trump.
President Biden, who likes to call himself the most pro-union president ever, also stood with striking auto workers during his last presidential campaign in 2019.
Hey, folks. I'm Joe Biden, and I am UAW.
He's hoping his historic support will give him a boost.
Can President Biden count on the union in 2020?
Absolutely.
The union will be there with him.
The union will be there with you.
Yeah, but hold on. Maybe we can find like one guy that will both sides of the situation. You know what I mean? Maybe we can find one guy that'll both sides of the situation so we can make a more comfortable narrative. You know what I mean? Because like that's what the media is in it for. They're in it for the drama. They're in it for the bullshit. They're not in it to like make any sort of serious analysis or adequate assessments that would at least meet the standards of real journalism. You know? Stupid as fuck. Stupid shit.
Former President Trump won Michigan in 2016, then candidate Biden won it in 2020. And you can expect both parties to be back here in Michigan in the coming year as they hone their messages on the economy, on trade, and on manufacturing.
Yeah, there it is. Okay. So let's dive a little bit further into this because Biden and Trump are both visiting Michigan, right? So let's look at the both sides ass coverage on the matter here, because obviously the one aspect of this that is like truly mind-boggling, and a friend of the show Alex Press wrote about this. The aspect of this that is truly frustrating to me has been the media coverage over the matter. For days, the mainstream media has said Donald Trump is going to Michigan to speak to union auto workers. That's completely false. He is traveling there today to speak at a non-union auto parts shop at the invitation of its boss. Okay? It's basically shit. We all believed it. That's insane. No, that's not true. If you believe this even for a brief moment, then you weren't listening to me talking about this. I said from day one, there is no singular moment. There is no doubt in my fucking mind that he is not going to go to the picket line. I told you. I told you from the jump, there was no shot he was going to a picket line. He's not. No way. That was never going to happen. I thought perhaps maybe he could hold a meeting and try to invite some hand-selected UAW rank and filers, but he's not even doing that. He's doing something a little bit different than that. Okay, it's even worse than that. There was just no shot that he was going to do that. He would get booed. He'd get owned. He would get absolutely owned. So, yeah, let's not even look at Trump's record as business. Let's look at how many small businesses he straight up destroyed simply because he didn't want to pay them for the work they did. Yeah, literally. Donald Trump is so bad at labor that he's not just bad at workers' rights from the perspective of any other Republican president, okay? But he's also bad even before he was running for office. In his own personal life, he is famously very bad at paying his workers. So much coverage has been done on this matter from the very same outlets that have actually covered Donald Trump because they hate Donald Trump. They've done real journalism in the past. So the fact that Politico and all these other outlets are that have written extensively on Donald Trump never paying its fucking contractors, turning around and being there's a real change happening here in the Republican Party, and it's genuine. It's are they really pro-labor? Is as silly as saying that at the top of the hour there isn't a 3-minute ad break. Okay? Because there is. There is a 3-minute ad break. Now, of course, you might think that if you're sitting up top your ivory tower of being a Hasanabi subscriber, okay, a subscriber that avoids the 3-minute ad breaks. Now, of course, in order to make it to the ranks of the many, you can also subscribe on your own or get gifted a sub by the likes of Owen Gila. Thank you for the 10 gifted subs, allowing 10 people to also no longer see the ads at the top of the hour. You can also subscribe with a Twitch Prime for free. Here's the 3-minute ad break now. This evening, rather than attend the second Republican presidential debate, Donald Trump will speak at Drake Enterprises, Inc., in Macomb County, Michigan, which sounds like Macomb and this dick in your mouth. I don't know why. My brain is so rotted. It's so broken. Okay? That in my mind, I just when I see words like this, I can't think of anything but that. 1 second. Hold on one moment. Okay, let's continue. Trump Tower got to start with undocumented foreign workers. Yeah, I mean, these are the same outlets that have regularly covered Donald Trump being bad to his workers, right? I mean, his catchphrase is "you're fired." The worst thing that a worker never wants to hear. Like, that's his fucking catchphrase. But because even the most regular ass American wagey doesn't recognize their class position and sees themselves as temporarily embarrassed Donald Trumps, they don't even understand that, like, this guy has been openly communicating his antagonistic relationship with your existence and your class position from the jump. And you clap like a fucking seal for it. Anyway, that's a totally separate issue. It's just, like, very frustrating to me. That kind of cultural juxtaposition can only exist in a Western liberal democracy like America, where, like, capitalism is our religion, is the real religion of the United States of America, right? I feel like even in other nations that have, like, at least a little bit more historic labor organizing and at least, like, revolting in their history, they will look to that sort of thing and go, this doesn't make a lot of sense. And yes, I'm talking about France, for example. Anyway. So, the plan is a non-union truck parts manufacturer that has nothing to do with the big three, where United Auto Workers members are waging a historic strike. The first time they've ever taken on all three major automakers at once. Trump is visiting at the invitation of the Drake Enterprises president, Nathan Stempel, who told Fox and Friends yesterday, some of our colleagues that we do business with reached out to us, informing him that Trump wanted to hold a rally and was looking for somewhere to host. We were more than willing to do so, he said. Here it is.
Automotive manufacturing company.
That's fucking, dude, he looks exactly how you expect him to look.
Drake Enterprises, where former President Trump will be speaking tomorrow. Nathan, good morning to you. It's going to be a big week for you and your business because the former president is coming to speak at Drake Enterprises. Not every day you get a former president, current frontrunner, to visit. So give us the backstory here. Tell us how this visit came about and why you do want to host the former president.
Well, first off, thanks for having me on. It was complete luck. Some of our colleagues that we do business with reached out to us, said that the president was looking for a location to host this event, and we were more than willing to do so.
Yeah, I'm sure you are more than willing. It sounds like a great opportunity.
I'm sure you are more than willing. He's just like, yeah, we're going to kill some of our workers too in honor. You know what I mean? We're going to sacrifice some of them in honor of Donald Trump, but we're going to do them in a pro-worker kind of way. You know what I mean?
And this is coming, the backdrop of this trip, of course, is the auto workers strike, which could drag on for a while. It's now expanded to 20 states. How does the strike impact your business?
There's several part numbers that we supply. We're a tier 2, tier 3 supplier, in some cases direct tier 1. But there are parts that we supply that the demand has dropped off, and we're not able to ship. We're still producing parts to create inventories and things like that, and to keep our people working. But that's only going to last so long, depending on how long these strikes go on for.
Yeah, it certainly will. And that's why, when we talk about how strikes impact the economy, what you just said is a great example of that. President Biden is in a pretty tough spot because he is pushing electric vehicles while at the same time trying to support these union workers. And those two things don't really line up. If electric vehicles were going to take over today, how would that affect you?
Oh, it would affect us drastically. It would put us out of business. If electric vehicles took over today and completely across the board, we'd pretty much be out of business. We supply passenger vehicles, mostly all driveline components.
This is the exact thing that NPR said this morning. I know. That's what's really frustrating. What's also really frustrating is my friends did not understand that Trump was actually talking to a non-union shop when I posted on my Instagram story. So I had to clarify. I'm sorry, but what exactly would happen if they switched to EVs? It's still a fucking car, lol. Electric vehicles have significantly less components and parts that these guys are actually selling. So technically they would take a hit. That is normal. That is the reality. That is a lot of the manufacturing facilities. If we like fully swapped over to EVs and like all of our fleets were EVs, a lot of the parts manufacturers and like secondary market shops would legitimately have a hard time adapting to that. Maybe even full blown lose their jobs. Plenty of parts within the engine no longer exist when we are talking about a battery. EVs, in many instances, is basically like an RC car. You know, it operates very similarly to literally a fucking RC car. So a lot less parts to worry about. No more like oil changes and things of that nature, right? Like, so much of the marketplace would have to adapt and overcome, which I know they would be able to. For the record, they would be able to do that, except that transition must be just, which is what President Sean Fain talks about quite frequently, and that just transition has to happen with the federal government helping every step of the way. If that just transition is not a just transition, and they just kind of transition without, putting clear, well-defined boundaries on how to do such a thing, then you're creating an environment where, capital owners are raking in the profits and utilizing the additional worker displacement to their advantage to further drive wages down. Feel me? However, like I said, this is not an anti-labor union talking point, despite the fact that NPR and mainstream media is trying to use this as an anti-labor union talking point. As a matter of fact, a lot of the IRA provisions were originally supposed to have specific labor union contracts, like if you want to build a manufacturing facility in America with American government subsidies, you have to ensure that your shop is unionized. A lot of those provisions were taken out due to people like Joe Manchin and due to, in my opinion, and this is where I will be critical of the Brandon administration, them not fighting hard enough for it. Beat the shit out of people like Joe Manchin when they speak out against it. Okay? That's crazy. Threaten committee positions, threaten the removal of committee positions, utilize the IRS, sick the IRS on them, sick the IRS on their families, Also, I already ran the ad break chatter. I don't know why you're trying to debate me 12 minutes into the top of the hour. All right.
As well as heavy-duty truck components. So if all the trucks and vehicles went electric, we would be scratching for something to do.
Yeah, so all those people that you employ would lose their jobs? Is that what we're talking about here? Yeah, yikes. And that's what...
Yikes. Yikes. Now, wonderful, brilliant, bold coverage here. Thank you so much. Thank you so much. What such incredible coverage, dude. Thank you.
Unfortunately, yes.
Yeah, and that's one of the things that former President Trump is talking about how, electric vehicles might be okay, but let the market dictate that as well, as opposed to pushing them along at an unnatural pace. What do you think about President Biden going to join the picket line today? You just heard Karine Jean-Pierre get a lot of questions about it yesterday. Do you think that that's a good idea? Too little, too late? Where do you stand on that?
She's just feeding him talking about it. She's like, is it too little, too late? Come on, say something negative about that, too. Let's hear what he has to say. Now, you presented him as this, brilliant, bold, beautiful representative of the working class, right? And then you had him on, even though he's a boss in a non-union shop. You had him on specifically to talk about how, devastating EVs will be for labor unions, okay? Interesting that this is the coverage that's happening currently. Let's see what he has to say about Brandon visiting the picket line.
Much of a politician. I have 3 kids and run a manufacturing company, so I don't have time to get into politics. I did look at some past things, and President Biden.
That's awesome. He said, I'm not a politician. I don't have time for such things. That's why I famously am doing the most apolitical thing I can do, which is be a fucking business owner who invites Donald Trump to his business that is a non-union business that has unionized alternatives, by the way, in the marketplace, that is doing this in the midst of a historic labor action, okay? Historic labor action in the form of the big three manufacturers all getting hit with strikes at the same time. But, like, of course, surely this is apolitical. I am so apolitical. There is nothing political about these actions that I'm engaging in. I'm just an apolitical business owner. And to be fair, from the American liberal capitalist dogmatic sensibility, yes, he is apolitical because he is operating within the confines of the system that has been designed where his position, being apolitical, is the default position anyway. So he is doing the thing that I say all the fucking time. Like when Ben Shapiro talks about the oppressive constructs and denies their existence and can easily say, it's just common sense, right? He's doing that same thing. You can always appear apolitical and neutral if you are simply taking advantage of the oppressive constructs within the system in and of itself. You're being disparaging the people suffering from political oxymoronism. Yes, but of course he's also going beyond it. If he was just simply a shop owner that was non-union, a lot of liberals would at least understand, or a lot of liberals would at least be on his side. They love small business. They love petty bourgeois tyrants, small business tyrants in themselves. They would maybe look at this and go, this guy seems like a real rugged, apolitical, centrist American to me. Except he's on Fox News for inviting Donald Trump to his shop. So, of course, at that point, you are not fucking apolitical, dumbass. And even the dumbest person in America still understands you are not apolitical.
In 2020 said that he was going to bring 18.6 million jobs for the automotive industry. And I don't know if that has happened yet or he miscalculated his numbers. We all know that's happened before. But I'll let you answer that.
Wait, I don't get it. You just shit on the IRA and you shit on EV manufacturing and said it's going to displace workers, but you simultaneously also said he's not bringing new jobs to America, which it did. It objectively did. Like what? How many manufacturing facilities are being opened now due to the EV subsidies? Yeah. Here's where the $154 billion investment and 188,000 jobs from Biden's EV push are going. Battery plants are being opened. Manufacturing facilities are being opened. Ridiculous to claim that this is just simply not true and it's just not happening. Unless you personally think that this kind of shit is not considered vehicle manufacturing because there's an E in front of it. Interesting. Many of these investments have happened in the burgeoning battery belt, which is developing in the Midwest and South, and some on the West Coast due to the influence of Tesla in Silicon Valley. The interactive map can sort locations by many other qualifications like company source and amounts of government funding, plant unionization, party of the congressperson representing the district the plants are in, and so on. Interesting. Yeah, you put an E in front of the V, and then all of a sudden it just like doesn't work, It's not a real vehicle now because there's an E in front of it, so it's fake. Imagine going on TV proclaiming for the entire world to see that you seriously believe the words that came out of Trump's mouth while simultaneously claiming you have better factual information than the current president. Really good stuff. Anyway, let's get back to the Politico article, though. Or not the Politico article, the Jacobin article from Alex Press. When asked how the UAW strike is impacting his company, Stempel said that demands have dropped off for some parts of his plant. Some parts his plant produces. The show's host then asked him about the shift to electric vehicles, as we just watched. A Biden administration priority to which the GOP, Trump included, is loudly and firmly opposed would affect this company. Oh, it would put us out of business, Stemple responded. If electric vehicles took over today across the board, we'd be completely out of business. Well, there you have it, all in a brief television clip. Trump visit to Michigan is being coordinated by Michigan's non-union auto manufacturers, many of whom oppose the transition to EVs. Part suppliers are particularly opposed, as an EV powertrain requires fewer parts than the internal combustion engine. Holding such a rally during the strike is the opposite of showing solidarity with union workers. It is, like I pointed to earlier in the broadcast, so if you're coming in now, you will hear me say it again. It's like if the Black Lives Matter protests are happening against police brutality, Joe Biden visits the Black Lives Matter protesters and stands in solidarity with the activists on the ground, and Donald Trump goes to the police precinct and talks to the police union, and the media looks at that and goes, wow, both of these guys are in support of BLM. Now, of course, battle lines are drawn on racial issues such as Black Lives Matter and police brutality in this country, so you can't really muddy the waters and neutralize either side's position. It's already commodified in a different direction, but we won't get into that. But it's always used against Donald Trump in an understandable way, because Donald Trump is against BLM. But because labor power has been absolutely destroyed in this country over the course of the past century or so, the media either A, doesn't know how to cover labor issues, okay, in an honest way, or B, does not want to cover labor issues in an honest way with a more cynical purpose behind it, which is my actual opinion. I think that the media is doing this deliberately. They know Donald Trump is anti-union. They know Donald Trump is anti-labor. And I think that they're cynically covering Donald Trump as pro-labor because they understand the pro-labor momentum in this country. They understand that 75% of people agree with the UAW strikes, so they are allowing Trump to cut propaganda. Nice article by Politico on a supposed GOP labor realignment, where the first sentence out of the gate is false. They changed this now. The goal is to neutralize labor support and conflate right-wing populism with real material support for labor, similar to naming anti-worker legislation right to work. Okay? That's wrong about the presidents. Wrong. That's wrong about the presidents. Where's Kaya? She's literally right behind me. What do you mean? Oh, she heard you. She heard you and got up. Wrong. I further followed up and said, you have to be an absolute dumbass to think that the Republican Party actually cares about workers' rights. Like, at least the Democrats fake pander and make marginal gains here and there. The GOP has always been antagonistic and outright destructive to labor. Trump going to a non-union shop in collaboration with right-to-work interest groups in the midst of a UAW strike and mainstream media reinforcing the falsehood that he's talking to striking workers at the picket is the perfect encapsulation of fake right-wing populism and its promotion through media. They are helping Donald Trump lie in the simplest terms. One, Donald Trump is lying and saying, oh, I care about the workers. That's why I'm like going and talking to workers, right? Okay? And the media is allowing him to, in the most complicit fashion, the media is allowing him to lie this way. They're doing marketing for him. The reason why the media is doing marketing for him in this direction is because they know, one, that labor unions are currently more popular than they ever have been. Okay? So that's good for Donald Trump, and that's good for Brandon if he is actually pro-labor union, right? And B, if Donald Trump does win the labor vote or enough support in these states and becomes the president again, he will gut what remains of the marginal union power we have in this country, and that is exactly what the media wants. Okay? Biden isn't pro-union. I do not care what Biden's own personal perspective is on labor unions. If you are telling me that Joseph Robinette Biden has not been more pro-labor union, his administration, specifically the agencies, specifically the NLRB, has not been more pro-labor union than Obama and any other contemporary American president, you are wrong. That's it. I know the bar is very low, but you are wrong. And everybody always says railroad, railroad, railroad. I have covered the railroad thing extensively. He was openly anti-union in that regard, at least publicly, okay? And then quietly, he forced the railroad companies by lobbying them behind closed doors to meet at least some of the demands that the railroad workers' unions were asking for. This is something that I mentioned. This is the truth. I do not know why they did it quietly, but they did. The railway workers' unions, rather, if you ask them, were happy with Brandon going back and getting some of these demands. They now have 4 days of paid sick leave. They were actually asking for more than that, of course. They were asking for 14, which is totally reasonable. Okay, it's the bare minimum. But the reality is that Brandon did do that, okay? These are facts. I do not care what the narrative in the media is. These are factually correct statements. I'm not going to sit there and fucking lie to you, okay? There it is. From the IBEV Media Center, the International Brotherhood of Electrical Workers. We never stopped applying pressure. Hard-fought success on rail sick days. After months of negotiations, the IBEV's railroad members at 4 of the largest U.S. freight carriers finally have what they've long sought, but that many working people take for granted: paid sick days. Railroad Department Director Al Russo, because of this paid sick days issue, said that this was a big deal, which nearly caused a nationwide shutdown of the freight rail before Christmas. Okay? It's not IBEV blood. What? It is IBEW, not IBU. What? OUI. Okay, shut up. English is my second language. Everybody, this is completely irrelevant, okay? I fuck up when I say Yahtzee. I think a lot of people forget that sometimes. W's and V's are very difficult. The W does not exist in the Turkish language, okay? I had to learn that. That's just let me live, okay? Anyway. While President Joe Biden was calling on Congress in November to pass legislation to implement the agreement, he stressed that he would continue to encourage the railroads to guarantee paid sick time for their employees. I share workers' concern about the inability to leave to recover from illness or care for a sick family member, Biden said. The pressure plus the IBUs, okay, ongoing efforts is paying off at last. The IBU and BNSF Railway reached an agreement on April 20th to grant members 4 short notice paid sick days with the ability to also convert up to 3 personal days to sick days. The union reached similar understandings with CSX and Union Pacific on March 22nd and with Norfolk Southern on March 10th. Okay? So they got that. We're thankful that the Biden administration played the long game on sick days and stuck with us for months after Congress imposed our updated national agreement, Russo said. Without making a big show of it, Joe Biden and the members of his administration in the transportation and labor departments have been working continuously to get guaranteed paid sick days for all railroad workers. Okay? I'm sorry. As much as I like to shit on Joseph Robinette and his administration, this is one area where the full story is a little bit different, okay? Does that mean PDB was involved? That is the worst aspect of the story that I hate covering. But yes, according to insider sources at least, Pete Buttigieg was personally involved in lobbying the railroad companies in an effort to push for these paid sick days. This part is also true. Yes, PDB was involved. Now, the real question is, why didn't he make a big show of it? I do not know. I don't fully understand it. I can't give you an honest Thank you for clarifying this. But I haven't clarified it just now. I have been talking about this for weeks. It's just that obviously there's a lot of people cycling in and out and they don't always hear it. But this is something that I've talked about quite a bit. Every single time the railroad workers comes up. Now, this doesn't mean that like we have created a workers' council. And this is a pro-labor, utopian, socialist, transitional nation state. Okay? Does not mean that labor power is better than it ever has been in the last 100 years. Because if you look at labor union militancy, labor union participation in the actual entire labor force, the percentages are dire. Okay? The percentages are dire. It's still trailing around 9 to 10% overall. It's not great. But if you ask me, Biden is moving, or at least his administration is moving, in the right direction. And any kind of false equivalence being made by mainstream media is a deliberate attempt to obfuscate and deflect away from the truth. Fair to say it's the best now that it's been in the past several presidencies since at least Reagan Shirley? Yes. Just like there are a lot of mainstream liberal positions that I go against that a lot of people don't understand. For example, Donald Trump is not as bad as the George W. Bush administration. Okay? The George W. Bush administration was worse than the Trump administration. I stand by that statement. This is yet another instance where Joe Brandon is better than every other contemporary president we've had on the issue of labor. His administration is better on the issue of labor than any other contemporary president. Okay? I was going to say, what about Taiwan? It's funny. All right. Despite longstanding GOP antipathy toward organized labor since 2016, when Trump won over more union households than any of the GOP presidents since Ronald Reagan in the 80s, more Republican officials are aligning themselves with striking workers, or at least aren't being openly hostile to them. Trump, it's worth noting, will be speaking at Drake Enterprises, a non-union shop, Wednesday. This is now the lead, okay, that they've buried. But at least they're recognizing it now in the newly formed article. Already, a range of prominent faces in the party have visited the picket lines or expressed support for the UAW members, though in ways that stop short of strengthening the power of organized labor. Senator Josh Hawley of Missouri spoke to strikers at a General Motors plant in Wentzville. Representative John James of Michigan, who represents suburban Detroit, and the Reagan Democrat bastion of Macomb County, brought hot coffee to striking workers, and J.D. Vance of Ohio has said that workers deserve to get their end of the shake. Now, friend of the show, beautiful boy Will Menaker also had a really funny Josh Hawley moment. Let me see if I can find it. Oh, here it is. Josh Hawley attended the picket line and said, privileged to visit the picket line in Wentzville today. These workers deserve better pay, better benefits, and guarantee their jobs will stay in America. Josh Hawley back in 2015. Right to work override fails in Missouri House. Time for an end to union-backed candidates in the GOP. Hashtag change is coming. Hashtag right to work. Now, do you think Josh Hawley legitimately had a change of heart? After all, 2015 is a long time ago. Maybe he changed. Yeah. You're a fucking dumbass if you think that there's a genuine change here, especially when you parse through the words that these fucking clever politicians sometimes put out there. It's pure populism with no real interest in backing the actual pro-labor position. Okay? He did not genuinely change his attitude. He just recognizes that when there is no real divide and labor unions can barely make material change in their own workplaces due to a century of anti-union sentiment being firmly planted in the collective consciousness of Americans, and the legislative and judicial body absolutely gutting any matter of marginal labor protections that we had codified, okay, they can comfortably assume the position of being pro-labor without actually being pro-labor. They can do that now. Okay? They can do that comfortably. They can say, oh man, I love the labor unions. If you look back at that same period of time, 2015, around that era, you would see Steven Crowder going to actual fucking striking picket lines and antagonizing and getting his ass beat by labor union rank and filers. Now, a lot of this stuff is not impossible to find. Okay, do you think it's impossible to find Josh Hawley's like actual opinions on labor unions? Do you think it's impossible to find the actual ratings that labor unions give to politicians? It's not just the NRA that does ratings, okay? Labor unions also offer ratings to politicians, okay? The AFL-CIO has a lifetime score. It's not just the NRA that has lifetime scores and grading. Josh Hawley's lifetime score from the AFL-CIO is literally 12% and a 0% agreement rating in the most recent United Auto Workers Labor Union scorecard. So do you have to be labortribune.com to come across this information? Is this not readily available to you? Are you a fucking journalist? Or are you a goddamn mouthpiece for the administration? Click on the AFL-CIO, Google it, and you will find this pretty quickly. They literally detail it. I am not a particularly smart individual, okay? I'm not. I'm a fucking dumbass himbo sitting in his house in Los Angeles, California. If I can fucking find this information this easily, you can too. You work for Politico, okay? Your job is literally to do this, to go, Josh Hawley seemingly is pro-labor. Let's investigate that further. Like, ask that question. Fucking call up Hawley and go, it seems that you said a bunch of things about the striking workers that are at odds with the way that you have operated in Congress. Okay? It's like, why have you always been consistently against labor unions in every single instance except for some? Except for Rail Workers Sick Leave and Postal Service Reform Act. Very frustrating. This new Republican attitude toward labor is borne out in new polling conducted by the American Compass, the conservative think tank trying to chart a post-Reagan populist vision for the center-right that is pro-worker. Some 41% of Republicans now say unions are a positive force that help workers and reduce corporate power. Great stuff. Great stuff. Did they also end up doing anything but just saying that they're on the side of labor unions? Of course not. But if you are a journalist, your job is to literally cover this. Your job is to inform people, not do propaganda for the Republican Party, and not do propaganda for the Democratic Party either. Fuck these guys, okay? Nightly, likewise, 57% of respondents agreed that Wall Street investors are getting rich doing things that weaken our economy over one that Wall Street investors play an important role in strengthening our economy. Those are eye-opening numbers considering that Democrats have been winning union households by double digits since 1988, according to presidential exit polls. Trump narrowed that gap considerably in 2016, but lost it to Biden in 2020 by a slightly bigger margin, all of which points to a new possible direction for the GOP. One that is increasingly skeptical of free market capitalism, said Orrin Cass, American Compass's executive director and former economic advisor to Mitt Romney's 2008 and 2012 presidential campaigns. Like, the guy who ran the think tank worked for Mitt Romney. It's... what? Like, do they have to wear monocles and top hats and speak in a transatlantic accent like this, you see, for you to fucking comprehend that these guys are not pro-labor? What the fuck, dude? These are the modern oil tycoon defenders. It's, you literally, like, when you're writing this, Alex Wren, I want to know, like, did you fucking bludgeon your head to a wall before you got to the point where you could, like, type these words out? Because I feel like you have to literally take, like, a Teflon pan and just slam it to your fucking face until your prefrontal cortex is withered away, okay? You've delivered so many concussive hits to your own fucking self, to your own goddamn brain, that only then can you just, like, type these fucking words out without maybe even being just relatively skeptical. Yeah, why do all the Republicans have the lowest score on the AFL-CIO.org scorecard? What is happening? Wait, hold on. Why are all these party affiliations... Wait, what is that? What's the elephant mean? Hold on. Wait, are you telling me that congressional Republicans are historically antagonistic towards labor? What? Wow. I mean, guys, to be fair, these guys, it's hard. It's hard to do journalism. It's hard to Google AFL-CIO scorecard. You know what I mean? It's hard. You got to do some real fucking journalism. Like, if that is what journalism is, then I'm the fucking best journalist. What the fuck are we doing? And I'm not, by the way. I'm saying that I'm not. I am not a journalist at all. I'm just a simple fucking dumbass commentator who sits around and at least reads a little bit and has, like, I don't know, a couple processors up here that fire up anytime I see this kind of shit. Okay. Notably, GOP presidential candidates may not have received the memo. Senator Tim Scott of South Carolina suggested the striking auto workers should be fired, and former UN, which, by the way, is illegal, for the record. That is illegal. Like, this is a violation of the law. Just want to point that out real quick. And former UN Ambassador Nikki Haley said the union asks were beyond the pale, which is what they always say. The management always says these asks are beyond the pale. These are unimaginable. We would default. We would be bankrupt. And then, much like the WGA situation that we saw, a deal will come and then we find out, oh my God, maybe the demands were not unreasonable, as a matter of fact, because, you know, they reasoned. AMPTP said the exact same shit, which, by the way, I will have Adam Conover on later in the broadcast to talk about his actions in the negotiations committee. That's right. He will be on later on the broadcast, and we will talk about all of that wonderful stuff as well. There is no going back to a pre-Trump 1980s-style conservatism, Cass told Nightly. It just does not have anything useful to say about the actual issues of 2020s. Trump, Cass said, is it primarily a symptom of the party's new orientation. It's actually a return to being a genuinely conservative party as opposed to this weird sort of hyper-libertarian economics, pro-capital, no matter what kind of force for globalization and open borders and nation building and all this stuff. Now, answer me this. How can you say this while simultaneously being Mitt Romney's guy when Mitt Romney is perhaps the greatest representation of that kind of elitist Republican Party? And answer me this question. You just shit on Ronald Reagan. Like, you literally just shit on Ronald Reagan. The only difference between Ronald Reagan and Donald Trump is that, I mean, I guess there's not really that much difference. Donald Trump basically cribbed everything from Reagan, including Make America Great Again. But also, like, aesthetically speaking, Ronald Reagan, unlike Mitt Romney, was more of a, like, I'm a real American guy, even though he was a, you know, Hollywood pervert, right? Literal labor union leader, by the way. Labor union leader Ronald Reagan. So, this is exactly what Ronald Reagan did. Hyper-libertarian economics, pro-capital, no matter what kind of force for. He did amnesty, globalization and open borders and nation building. He did all of that. Don't expect the completion of the realignment to be complete by the 2024 presidential election, Cass said. Are you covering the debates tonight? Fuck yeah. Where I think the opportunity for conservatives is so large, it's not to make unions a sort of conservative interest group, the way it's been a progressive one, Cass said of the unions. There will be no better win than to move it back towards neutral as a political entity. That's it. That's the article. Actually mind-numbingly stupid. Hey guys, GOP's actually doing a retriangulation on labor, so we went to the Mitt Romney guy to find out more on how the GOP is aesthetically backing labor. 16-hour stream? No, the debate is at 6 p.m. my time. Here it is. It's not just Politico, however. It's not just like the right-wing outlets. It's, Politico is more of a openly right-wing outlet, obviously. But there's more. Headline is false too. New York Times article itself notes his presidency was one of the most anti-labor, even by GOP standards. The rest of the article doesn't seem to know what a union is, conflating it with Trump's MAGA fiction of workers. Some workers are unionized, some aren't. Trump, weighing in on auto strike, has a mixed legacy on unions. Where is the mixed legacy? He has never been mixed on unions. He's always been anti-union. What the fuck? Donald Trump is not speaking to striking auto workers on UAW members today. Why are there so many mainstream outlets bending over backwards to make it seem like he is? Trump bets big on Michigan with rally on GOP debate night as UAW strike continues. Former President Donald Trump, the undisputed frontrunner, will not be one of them. He instead will skip the event to travel to Michigan, where he plans to court the vote of auto workers. Why Biden and Trump are courting striking auto workers, says the New York Times. Donald Trump is expected to speak to union members in Detroit. Not true. This is not true. Biden and Trump focus on wooing union workers, underlining their swing state power, says experts. What are you the expert at? Being a fucking idiot? I'm an expert at being a dumbass. This is how you manufacture consent. Donald Trump plans to skip the second Republican presidential debate on Wednesday, instead to court unionized employees with remarks outside of Detroit. None of this is true. I do not know, and I will not say 100% without a shred of doubt that this is deliberate and malicious, but goddamn, this level of journalistic malpractice has to be. Like, I don't know how incompetent you can fucking be. Like, how can you be this incompetent? Like, physically, how are you? Like, you have no brain processing power? Like, what's going on up there? Is it just a fucking hollowed out shell or something? In 2004, Donald Trump crossed one of our picket lines in New York as workers on The Apprentice spoke up to get paid fairly. He's the most anti-worker, anti-union president in U.S. history. Yeah. It blows my mind. Like, these guys love hating Donald Trump. They love shitting on Donald Trump. So why are they flubbing on this issue? Why are they doing pro-Trump propaganda? Because when you don't show how major of a misstep this is from Donald Trump to like go to a non-union shop in the midst of a fucking strike, because this is a great avenue of attack against Donald Trump. A lot of my liberal naysayers claim that I am the biggest Trump dick rider of all time. I love Donald Trump. I want to fuck him. I want to suck him. And I love him, right? They always love saying that shit. Meanwhile, I don't hear from CNN the same level of antagonism. Even Wolf Blitzer had Sean Fain on to talk about the situation. And in my opinion, it was a rather odd conversation. Let's take a look. And I got to pee again. We watched this yesterday, but give it a second watch.
As you know, former President Trump will travel to Michigan tomorrow to give a speech to auto workers in Detroit. Many of your members are supporters of his. He wrote this on his social media just ahead of President Biden's visit there today. This is from Trump. Joe Biden's draconian and indefensible electric vehicle mandate will annihilate the U.S. auto industry and cost countless thousands of auto workers their jobs. Is the former president right? Does the push for electric vehicles here in the United States hurt your union?
It doesn't if it's a just transition, and that's what we're fighting for right now. It doesn't if the companies do the right thing and put this work under, our agreements or to our standards. And again, it's the companies driving this race to the bottom, and they're using our tax dollars to finance it. And I find a pathetic irony that the former president is going to hold a rally for union members at a non-union business. And all you have to do is look at his track record. His track record speaks for itself. In 2008, during the Great Recession, he blamed UAW members. He blamed our contracts for everything that was wrong with these companies. That's
Hold up. Sean, you're spitting a little too hard. Wolf, cut the feed.
That's a complete lie. In 2015, when he was running for president, he talked about doing a rotation, taking all these good paying jobs in the Midwest and moving them somewhere in the South where people work for less money, and then to make people beg for their jobs back at lower wages. And the ultimate show of how much he cares about our workers was in 2019 when he was the president of the United States. Where was he then? Our workers at GM were on strike for 60 days, for 2 months. They were out there on the picket lines. I didn't see him hold a rally. I didn't see him stand up at the picket line, and I sure as hell didn't hear him comment about it.
So here's the question.
Boom! Wolf comes in and he's like, all right, you spat too hard. Okay, Sean, how about you shut the fuck up a little bit? And let me ask another completely irrelevant question about how will you show support to Donald Trump?
Here's the question to President. What about the meeting with Trump? Would you meet with him when he's in Detroit tomorrow?
I see no point in meeting with him because I don't think the man has any bit of care about what our workers stand for.
He's like, here, thank you for telling me all of those things. I will not be listening to you, and I don't give a fuck what you have to say about it, actually. I just asked these questions because, I'm supposed to ask these questions, and now I'm going to use this opportunity to shut you the fuck up and ask a completely irrelevant question that basically throws everything you just said aside with the hopes that you say maybe you will see Donald Trump so I can bludgeon you with it later. Okay? The real purpose of that question, in my opinion, in that situation, is to, if he says yes, then they can, one, sow division in the union, okay? And two, use it against them later and use it against, labor unions later down the line, right?
Or what the working class stands for. He serves a billionaire class, and that's what's wrong with this country.
Well, that effectively sounds as an endorsement for Biden. Am I wrong?
It's not an endorsement for anyone. It's just a flat out how I view the former president.
As
the media wants to make this entertaining and competitive, so they're going to do shit like this and do bias polls with the details in fine print. Yeah. I don't get it. There's no other alternative. So you
turn out of the big.
That means you like Biden, right? You like Biden. I mean, the UAW most likely will. The UAW most likely will lend support to Biden later down the line, but I do understand why you want to play your cards close to your chest, especially at a time like this when you can get help from the president, demand that help from the president, and make him earn the support of a labor union with 145,000 members, okay, in key states that will determine the outcome of the next election. He's got a lot of leverage. He should use it. He's very smart, and he's using it appropriately. Suck my dick, Wolf Blitzer. So, Chris Marchione, a political director of the International Union of Painters and Allied Trades, District Council 1M in Michigan, told me that the non-union auto manufacturers in the Trump campaign are being assisted in organizing today's rally by at least one longtime local activist in the state's right-to-work movement. Okay? I want you to understand, these guys, like Trump, is not just going to a non-union shop, but he's getting assistance on the ground from right-to-work people. Right to work is the clever way, because Republicans never say what they actually mean. You know how they don't say we're forced, we're pro-forced making you give birth. were pro-life, right? And it's the same as that. Right to work is actually right to fire. Right to work is actually no rights for unions, okay? Right to work equals get to work, exactly. So remember that. Right to work is fucking clever Republican branding that is focus tested to try to make it seem like it's actually something that's pro-labor when it's literally anti-labor. Okay? That anti-union movement suffered a major defeat earlier this year when Michigan became the first state in years to repeal a right-to-work law, but it has by no means ceased its efforts to disorganize workers and undermine their unions. Who was at the helm of that movement? Who was the one who fucking signed it? Motherfucking Big Gretch, baby. That's right. Actually, I just wanted to show this video, though. Here. Here, this is from him as well.
We want to present these
Here.
buffs to our governor. About the stress. We got Big Gretch. You can find her in the press under Big Gretch. Fresh in a new dress. Yeah, that's Big Gretch. Throw the buffs on her face, cause that's Big Gretch. We ain't even about the stress. We got Big Gretch. At all. You can find her in the press under Big Gretch. Look her up. Fresh in a new dress. Yeah, that's Big Gretch. Come on. Big Gretch and this bitch playing no roles. At excuse all the cussing, that's just how I get my flow on. For real. If you wanna lead the state, you can stay gone. But right now, Big Gretch said stay home. Sit your ass down. All that protesting was irrelevant. Big Gretch ain't trying to hear y'all or the president. How we gonna take orders from a non-resident? Talking about it safe, but he ain't coming with the evidence. Big Gretch got him shook now. When it's all over, you invited to the cookout. When it's all over, you deserve to get took out. Big Gretch on the lookout.
He says you're invited to the cookout. When it's all over, you deserve to get took out. Oh, God. It's so good. Anyway, Okay, we're done. I mean, this is a meme, but let's continue. Let's continue with this article. Marchione comes from a family that includes several generations of UAW members. He says that several members of his family, current UAW members in Michigan, received text messages from the right-to-work activist, also a UAW member, who invited them to attend the Trump rally. People are trying to push that this is inorganic, but it's not, said Marchione. My cousins are all UAW members. Every one of them got a text message. Oh, people that are trying to push this is organic, but it's not. The organizers are picking who they want. They want prospective attendees to pass along their social media profiles. Trump is curating a crowd, and it pisses me off. If you want to support union workers, pay the fucking Glaziers who got screwed when they put the windows on Trump Tower. When asked on CNN yesterday about Trump's visit, UAW President Shawn Fain said, I find a pathetic irony that the former president is going to hold a rally for union members at a non-union business. We already watched that video. When asked whether he would be willing to meet with Trump, Fain said he didn't see the purpose. He serves the billionaire class, and that's what's wrong in the country. As for Drake Enterprises, don't count on Trump. A guest of the non-union shop's boss to criticize his working conditions, which appear to be dismal. The pay on Glassdoor listings for positions on the plant do not require college degree ranges from mid-30,000s to around 50,000 with poor benefits. Comments on the site claimed that the company offers fewer paid holidays than comparable employers in the industry and that Drake Enterprises' sick day and parental leave policies leave much to be desired. Here's a Google review, which 21 users marked as helpful. One of the best places to destroy the confidence, morale, and enthusiasm of a human being. Okay? Turnover, or is it churnover? Sickening. A tantrum-driven, adolescent mentality top boss. Sensitivity training is a must for the organization's leadership. Survival of the fittest is a must. Check your feelings at the door, but keep your head on a swivel. A wonderful place to work if you're on work release or in a halfway house. Man. Shocking to me that the guy who operates a non-union shop is not a good boss. That's shocking. Just yesterday, Politico's national politics correspondent opened his newsletter by writing, when Donald Trump heads to suburban Detroit to address striking out of workers, the former president will be bracketing Joe Biden's own visit to the UAW picket line and unofficially kicking off the general election in a battleground state. Mainstream media would rather repeat a Trump-manufactured narrative, which uses a strike involving 150,000 working-class people as an object to be exploited for political posturing instead of informing readers on the basis of fact. It's proof of the continued validity of the critiques of bourgeois press. It is a propaganda machine by and for the rich, even with liberal outlets putatively opposed to Trump taking his bait hook, line, and sinker. Their coverage of his visit to Michigan is a canary in the coal mine, a warning and reminder as the presidential race heats up. A Trump victory in 2024 would be good for ratings. It would also be good for business on the business side. Okay? Now, Eric Levitz did a, I think, decent job of covering this. He is definitely a lot better in mainstream media than many other writers, where he basically uses an opportunity to show how abysmal and how silly Trump's fake populism is. You know? It's just dumb as fuck.
Damn, this guy's good.